Titans fans, hello and welcome back to the Two Tone Crew. This is John Boy, and we are the official podcast of TitansReport.com, episode 141. Wow, 140 episodes leading up to tonight. And just before the show, Jamal, Scotty, and myself, we were talking about just how difficult it is to get time to record. I know we've said multiple times we might be moving to Sunday, but it just hasn't worked out for us yet. So here we are again on our usual Wednesday evening slot. Maybe you're listening this on Thursday, Friday, or perhaps just before the next Titans game. But both Scotty and Jamal are here tonight, and we're getting ready to talk about a Titans victory as well as preview the upcoming game against the Seattle Seahawks. So, Jamal, welcome back.
Thanks, John.
And also, Scotty
I'd
is
say
back.
good to be here, but I don't really trust my internet to keep me here tonight. So,
Yeah, we've been having some technical issues there. We'll see how it goes and how long Jamal's able to stay with us. And also, Scotty is back once again.
Good to be back. Blowout win, top of the AFC South.
That's right. Tiebreakers considered, the Titans are leaders in the AFC South right now. And that was after a pretty convincing victory over the Jags, 37-16. Didn't look like that at halftime, though, guys. A score of 6-3 at the half. And it looked like the Titans were going to be in for quite a battle against the Jags. And second half, rather, Blake Bortles started being Blake Bortles, and the Titans found something with Derrick Henry, and I think Mariota got in a groove and made some big third down plays. But obviously, the third quarter was huge. They put up 17 points in the third quarter, and then, as I said, cruised to a 37-16 victory. So, Jamal, you weren't on last week, so you're kind of coming at this. I think the listeners are hearing your thoughts fresh based on the first two games. So, all things considered, with the Raiders loss and now this Jags victory, what's kind of your read on the team right now about what you expected in terms of what you're seeing on the field?
I probably expected the offense to be better, and then you start thinking about it, and I guess all the new pieces and lots of injuries in the preseason and training camp and everything, maybe it makes some sense. But I'd like to see the offense clicking a little bit better. That's probably worse than expectations. But overall, I think the team has been playing well. I was even one of the things, if I had made it last week on the podcast, I've just been working way too much, so I've been taking time off, and thank you guys for keeping the podcast going without me. But the Titans offense, the fact that we couldn't score touchdowns was really disappointing, and it kind of continued into this week until we started getting drives starting at the opponent's 40-yard line a couple of times, and then it just kind of landslided. But even in week one, I was looking at it, and we averaged something, I think, like 40 yards per drive, which was towards the top of the NFL. So the offense is moving. It's just not quite moving the way you want. And it kind of feels like for a while against Oakland, it was like, third down. Can we keep this up? I mean, it's nice to convert third downs, but gosh, get something going on first and second down. And then you couldn't punch it in the red zone. So I think probably the offense has been doing better than I feel like, but I feel like it's not as good as I want.
Yeah, I was doing a running tally on the Titans Report game thread. I think it got up to 5 quarters without a touchdown because they scored in the first quarter against Oakland, then didn't score the next 3 quarters. Yeah, and then the first 2 quarters of the Jacksonville game, they didn't score. So they went 5 straight quarters without scoring, and then, of course, in the third quarter, they got 2 touchdowns and 2 more in the fourth. But like you said, those were really spurred by the defense and by forcing those turnovers. So, Scotty, what was your overall take on the Jags game? I know we were probably a little nervous early, but they finished out strong.
Honestly, the way the Jags started, just watching their game plan, they were running the ball. They even did a read option with Bortles. You could tell, okay, they're going to try to get like 40 carries, and I knew that they would not be able to score many points. And I felt pretty good that once the Titans slowed down the running game, that I think we talked about it last week, make them throw the ball. And in Bortles' defense, a couple of those interceptions was not his fault. They were deflected or whatever. But still, they can't throw the ball. They can't protect the passer very well. And one of the turnovers was because of a sack and a forced fumble. So I I wasn't really nervous early on, and then I figured the Titans had the ability to kind of break away. So it's about what I figured.
And did a nice job on Leonard Fournette. I know he had a lot of hype coming out of week one, and Titans held him to 40 yards on 14 carries. So
Felt
that
like a
was
lot more than that, didn't it? Like,
Because of the first drive.
yeah, the first driver too, he was just bouncing off people, and it seemed like, wow, this guy is good. But then once the game got out of hand, that's really what opponents are going to have to do to Jacksonville. Their passing game is terrible. Their offensive line isn't good enough. But if they can keep it close and they can keep running the ball, they'll stay in the game. But we got the game out of hand, and then it was just over.
yeah.
The situations like the Jaguars got to play with the lead, so their pass rush got after the Texans. All the situations went their way, and that's just not going to happen to most opponents most weeks. So they'll probably finish with 6 or 7 wins.
This week was kind of the opposite too, because not only did we get a good punt return, so like situationally we had good field position, they had it bad. We were converting some of their mistakes into actual turnovers, and then they had just like in the second half. I was just rewatching it a little bit tonight. It was just like every drive was getting set back to like 2nd and 20, 2nd and 30, because they just had penalty after penalty after penalty. Like,
Yeah.
they had no chance, even if they were executing well, which they didn't. Even if they were executing well on the actual downs, they were so far behind because of the penalties that they were screwed.
Yeah, they were penalized, looks like 7 times for, or no, 10 times for 99 yards in the game, and then they had 3 turnovers. Yeah, like back off what you were saying, Scotty, against the Texans, they had so many turnovers, and the defense really just carried them.
And they
And
could keep feeding Fournette the ball, and
yep,
I think Bortles completed like 11 passes. I mean, just not going
yeah.
to happen. It's not going to happen very often.
And I think their defense is legit. I think the Titans just showed that, with a better offensive line than what the Texans have, and a
Mm-hmm.
quarterback who, although he did have the interception, didn't look great in the first half, but having a quarterback who's generally able to avoid sacks and avoid mistakes compared to what the Texans were trying with the Savage experiment, which quickly ended. You just see how much of a difference a quarterback can make by not making so many mistakes to get your team behind early and having a good offensive line. So the Titans found their running game this week, which was big because in week one they did not run the ball very well. And in this game, most of that came as a result of Derrick Henry. Once they went to Henry, the running game really came alive. He had, of course, he's the big talk all week. It's been all about Derrick Henry. 14 carries, 92 yards, average over 6.5 yards a carry, and of course had the big touchdown run that really helped to get things solidify how that game was going to go when he gave a nice stiff arm and then ran over Jalen Ramsey. So he looked fantastic. And Murray, of course, now seems like has an injury, depending on how much you believe malarkey or not, how serious it is. But he only had 9 carries, 25 yards, averaged 2.8. So interesting, just an interesting, I don't know that I would call it a dilemma, but we've kind of known this was coming for a while. I mean, this was inevitable that one day Derrick Henry was going to take over for DeMarco Murray. How soon and when was always the question, right? So, and here we are with Murray injured, and Malarkey's saying all the right things. Of course, he's not going to say that, oh, DeMarco Murray's our number 2 now. He's still saying that he's the starter, but he didn't practice today, and I would expect they're not going to rush him back. The way they're talking is like he'll be back and available, but it
I think
remains to be seen.
in the press conference today, I think what he actually said, his quote was, "I have to see if he's going to be effective before we use him."
Interesting. So you could take that as related to an injury or not related to an injury.
Well, you could still say, well, yeah, it still works out if he's injured. You could still say
Yeah.
that.
But before we started, Scotty, you and I were talking, and you kind of, I think you were expecting to come on the podcast from what we were talking about and say Derrick Henry needs to be the guy 100% all the way. And then you kind of did a little research and found out a little more information.
Yeah, I heard Greg Cosell talking today, and he was breaking down Henry's runs and stuff, and he pretty much said that most of his runs were from 3 tight ends or 6 offensive linemen and really heavy sets. And obviously, talking about last year, I went back and looked at last year. First of all, starting with the Jaguar game Sunday, Henry came in early on 1 or 2 series, and I was waiting to see if he played in any passing downs. He played in 1 passing down, and he's the one that gave up the sack to Miles Jack. And when he was on the field in the passing down, the Jaguars blitzed as if they knew, Henry can't pass block. Once the game was in hand, that's when Henry got all his carries, and they didn't have to worry about him pass blocking. So then I went back to last year. We're debating on the DeMarco Murray injury. There was 2 games after DeMarco Murray got hurt where they fell behind, the Colts game and the Chargers game. So they had to pass the ball in those games. One of those games, Henry had 3 snaps. 3 total snaps. Forget carries. He had no carries. The other game, 0 snaps.
He was out for the Chargers injured. He was injured in pregame. And the Colts was definitely the biggest surprise, I think, to a lot of fans at the time, where he definitely got no. You're talking about the Colts game where he got no carries, right?
Yeah, he only played 3 snaps in the game.
Yeah, and that was just, it's still surprising. It's still the one that angers me a little bit.
But it's tied directly to pass blocking.
It could very well be. And I think that's, when we talk about running, I don't think there's any question DeMarco Murray is not as good as effective a runner as Derrick Henry over the last, more than half a season. But
he seriously looks like one of the best runners in the whole league, honestly.
But there's much more to it than that. And that's why, coming into the season, it's kind of like, well, I guess if DeMarco Murray is healthy again, then I can understand them wanting to go back to him. He's not healthy now, so then it's really kind of a test of whether you want to be negative or positive or whatever for Malarkey. He generally likes a bell cow back. He generally doesn't like running back by committee, and that's DeMarco Murray for him. And I just don't see it straight to Derrick Henry absent the injury.
Well, so, last year, the number 2 running back got the highest percentage of carries that a number 2 running back has ever got under Malarkey.
Exactly. It wasn't very much.
What do you have, 100 and something carries? I can't remember.
I don't know, actually.
110. He had 110. Okay. I posted this last year. If you really chart his runs, almost all of them were after the games were in hand, and they didn't have to worry about it. In the preseason, he gave up like 3 sacks pass blocking. His pass blocking is a huge problem. Obviously, Sunday, the Jaguars, as soon as he was in the game, they blitzed him. He gave up a sack.
That'd be interesting. I'll have to go back and watch that one.
You remember Miles Jack getting the sack?
I do. I just don't remember the specifics of the play at all.
It's 3rd down. They blitzed 6 or 7 people, too, and he kind of got in his way. He kind of knocked Henry out of the way, and then Mariota tried to scramble out, but Miles Jack's pretty fast. He was on him, but I just thought also another play. I mean, tell me this is injury related. 2-minute warning. It's 3rd and 1. There's still plenty of time left, so time's not a factor. Murray's on the drive. He's the running back on the drive.
This before half, right?
Before half, yes. 3rd and 1, they bring Henry into the game, and he picks up the 1st down. Okay. Then they do a substitution. I can't remember if it's timeout or what. Murray's the running back again. Obvious running situation. They bring Henry in. Obviously, Murray's not hurt. He doesn't have this slight hamstring at this point. He's still running the 2-minute drill. They know Henry's the better running back, but he's a liability in the pass game. He was in the preseason, and he was in this game. They didn't even put him in the position hardly to be exposed as a blocker.
Yeah,
so that was the problem last year, and I think that's probably going to be the problem in the upcoming games.
Well, in that case, you can use DeMarco Murray as a third down back, right? But they won't do that. They won't give downs 1 and 2 to Derrick Henry. They're gonna. I mean, he likes a bell cow back.
I don't think it's that simple though. You do a lot of play action pass on first down, and it's not just going to be third down.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look at the game a little bit because Derrick Henry basically played the entire second half, and that half started where the game was still close.
Well, they got the punt. They got the punt return,
and
then he had the 17-yard touchdown run. Right then, the game was kind of secured.
Well, but even before that, the drive before that, because didn't they start their first drive in the second half, started at the 40-yard line, and they basically stalled out? And then the second one, they got the punt return, and that one they took for a touchdown?
There was another drive in there. I can't remember exactly.
I think he was the running back for that drive, too. So I do think he played the second half just starting in the second half when it was still close. But I think it's a totally valid point. DeMarco Murray's value is not simply running, and it's the easiest thing to talk about. And so I talk plenty about his yards per carry, but absolutely his pass catching and his pass blocking is huge.
Murray was the running back to start the third quarter. They got
to start the third quarter. Okay.
Yeah. So
they got a field goal in that drive.
Yeah. So it was 6-3 at the half, and then Jags got the ball out of the locker room. And that's when they had the pass intercepted. Cersei got that interception. That was the second interception of the day. And then on that next drive, the Titans ended up with a field goal. But yeah, Murray ran it. Let's see if Henry had any carries. Looks like he didn't have any on that drive. Then the next drive, that's when we had the big punt return.
Exactly.
Yeah, we had the big punt return. And so then it was only 2 plays. They passed to Delaney Walker 17 yards, and the very next play is when Henry had his big run that scored the touchdown. Then from there, they're up 16-3. And that's when I don't think Murray saw
they know they can run the ball. That's when they know they don't have to worry about Henry pass blocking. The fact they brought him in the 2-minute drill to get the first down on 3rd and 1. And then took him back out and let Murray finish the drive. I mean, it's all about the pass protection right there.
Yeah, it could also be a package. I mean, he was in on the package for short yardage plays that week. But no, I don't think it's probably as black and white as that, but I think it's a big factor in it. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
So it's definitely going to be something to watch, especially if Murray actually can't go and they do have to play Henry on these obvious passing downs. If they even maybe put Fluellen out there. I don't know how they feel about him as a pass blocker, but
may just have to let Henry learn on the job.
I think there was a good bit. I'm just thinking back to last year, and I remember looking at the stats quite often where there was a disparity between their rushes. DeMarco Murray had a lot more rushes under center percentage-wise than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had a lot of rushes out of shotgun. This game, clearly a lot of his rushes were from under center, but you wonder if that relates to just the situations they were willing to trust him in as well.
Right.
We'll see this week. San Francisco ran the ball on Seattle.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say this definitely is not a good week to be shaky in pass protection. So if they're worried at all about Henry being back there for that, this is definitely not a good week for that. And of course, we'll talk more about that here in a bit. But just kind of wrapping up this Jags game, obviously very good to get first win of the season, but really good to get that divisional win.
Yes.
The Titans, Malarkey talked about that was going to be a focus this season. They've got to win division games. We can't just go splitting every year, especially with the Jags splitting. And then I guess we had the gimme against the Texans at the end of the year and the Colts. We just can't get over that hump. But So that was a big focus this year. Great to start the division 1-0. Now we've got 3 teams at 1-1 in the division, and then you've got the Colts at 0-2 right now. So division, the Titans are in a great position right now, 1-0. Seahawks coming up. After that, you've got another divisional game against the Texans. So before we wrap up the Jags talk, I think defense, I mean, there's lots of praise to go around. I mean, they did their job effectively in this game. Arakpo had the sack that caused the fumble. We had the 2 interceptions by Cersei had one, and then what's the guy? Curtis Riley, who actually was playing a lot of safety as well in the absence of Cyprian. He got one of the interceptions too. So pretty good job by the defense in this game. Derek Morgan had a sack. So they got to Bortles a couple of times, and by and large did what you would want to see them do against a Jacksonville team. Most of the Jags points came late. They had 14 points in the fourth quarter. So you'd like to see them finish a little bit stronger, but overall good performance. And I don't think we can say enough about the impact Adoree Jackson's having on special teams. Right. I mean, that is just a huge change from last year when it was, okay, great, Mariani did a nice job fielding that punt and didn't lose us anything. But now we actually have a dangerous weapon back there who can totally flip the field. And as we saw, did flip the field and led the Titans to their first touchdown. So, and I've been, Jamal, what has been your take on watching him at corner? Because I know we were all concerned going into the year. He's kind of like a bit of a boom bust prospect there, but I've been very impressed, despite the fact that, I mean, he's clearly been beaten on slants and a couple of other routes a number of times, but he's made enough plays, especially plays on the ball for me, that I'm feeling really good about Jackson and his long-term progression as a player.
Early in the Raiders game, I was nervous because they were picking on him and they were completing the balls, and I was. And then
we might be losing you a bit. Let's try that thought again, and we'll see if it cuts out on you this time.
I was just saying it is the big fear was what I was seeing early in the Raiders game, but then he just settled into it and it didn't continue. And since then, you know, I think he's done pretty well. He is, I mean, when they're completing balls, it's not like they're running past him. It's not like he's getting burned deep all the time. He had a couple plays where he came up and I think he got Fournette in the backfield one time. You know, I've been satisfied with that, especially considering what he can do returning the ball as well. He's been a huge addition to the team, and he's not a major weakness on defense. And I'm just going to segue that real quick into this rookie class has been providing big plays, and you saw it from 3 different people in that game. Jonnu Smith had the big touchdown. He had the big completion down the left sideline to Taywan Taylor.
Yeah.
And then the punt return. And you can just see the speed and the athleticism added there has been a big boon to this offense and to the team as a whole.
And even Jayon Brown, I mean, they're putting that guy in, they're moving him all over the field. I mean, they feel very comfortable with Jayon Brown. And of course, we got nothing from our number 1 overall pick this game, or our number 5 first round pick. Corey Davis seems to be that the hamstring has been re-aggravated. But yeah, the rookie class as a whole, I mean, it's very easy to get excited what we've seen so far. And Jackson, go ahead.
Real fast, I heard Greg Cosell today say that Jayon Brown actually played in a lot of the base sets against the Jaguars, and he wondered if he wouldn't transfer into like full-time starter mode. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. They seem to have a lot of trust in him already.
Oh, he's been great.
Yeah, I was just pulling up the numbers here. He only had, looks like he just had 1 tackle, but he did actually have a pass defensed in this game. And I mean, you can just watch the game and see that he's making lots of plays on the ball. So, and LaShawn Sims, we hadn't mentioned him yet. It's good to get him back. He had a couple nice plays in this game as well. But yeah, I mean,
think the three cornerbacks as a whole, I think they're going to be very solid.
Yeah,
as Jackson
especially
gets better, they're going to have three guys that can play man coverage pretty good.
yeah, especially if Jackson can be, I mean, just build on what he's doing so far. Because I expected him, I expected to be one of those situations to where he was just going to start off really bad, getting burned a
I did too.
lot.
I thought we'd see a little Parrish Cox in him early in the year.
Yeah, but thus far we haven't. And I mean, what better trial by fire than opening day against the Raiders? I mean, that Crabtree right now is playing insane. He's off to a great start this year, and then they've got Cooper as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, great start for Dory Jackson, and I don't think anyone would deny how well he's been doing in the punt return game. But yeah, so defense, I think, did exactly what you want to see in this game. I mean, held the Jags to, it was 3 points at the half, didn't score any in the second. Jags didn't score any in the third. And then they did give up those two, late when the game was pretty much decided. But great defensive effort overall and a great special teams effort. So before we move on from this game, though, I do want to talk briefly about Davis again, because Scotty and I were talking before we got started, Jamal. I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, clearly, I don't think he was ready week one. He played well week one. He made some plays week one, but it's kind of surprising that they rushed him back, it seems. Or maybe, I mean, sometimes you just have to, it can't all be on the coaches. Maybe Davis was, we know all about his work ethic and we know all about how bad he wants to play. Maybe this was a situation where he really insisted and overrode them. I don't know, but clearly now it seems that they are finally taking the approach where this thing could run into maybe the whole month of October, based off what Malarkey said today, that they want to make sure that this doesn't linger into November.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if that was the exact quote, but it was something to that effect. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird that they even, I mean, they put him back in at the end of the Jags game in the fourth, and Malarkey said something about they felt comfortable with the shorter routes. I'm like, no. I mean, if he's not ready, then let the guy rest, let it heal,
Yeah.
because we saw what he can do. I mean, we know he can make plays. We just got to get him healthy and then get him back out there once he's fully healthy.
And why would you risk it? In the
Yes,
fourth
it's
quarter of the
game's
Jags
decided.
game, there's just no point. I mean, I don't know. I take issue with, in general. I mean, there's the whole old school mentality of rub dirt on it for injuries and stuff like that. And I think some coaches are probably just a little bit more pushy when it comes to, if you can, then go out there. And then players are probably taking a little bit less caution. But I'm glad they're going to shut him down. I'm not happy that it needs to happen, but get him fully healthy. I mean, and the thing about hamstrings, playing non-professional sports, right? So there's only so much you can compare it, but you have injuries like that where it seems like it's gone and it just crops back up every once in a while. And he could have definitely thought it was done, and then he went out and just kind of strained it a little bit more, and then now you're back to square one on that. So I'm not too surprised, because that sort of thing does happen. But I'd like it to just be taken care of and get him back whenever we can get him back, and it's truly done and over with, then good. But that's the other thing with DeMarco Murray, by the way. If it's a hamstring, what's the injury with DeMarco Murray? Is it a hamstring?
It's hamstring.
Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slight hamstring was the thing.
But the thing with those is those are injuries that get worse if you don't rest them. If he has a slight hamstring, he goes out there, it can turn into a major hamstring issue. So I don't see why they would play him if it's not truly healthy. It just, I don't get it.
Because they need his blocking, that's why.
Somebody can block. Somebody can do something. I mean, you're gonna have him in.
Derrick Henry can't.
Derrick Henry maybe can't, but this is the thing. You pull him in to play injured, lose him where he can't go then for a period of time in the season. That's just a bad idea.
Oh, it's a problem, no doubt about it.
But before I forget, Jayon Brown played, for what it's worth, in 36% of defensive snaps.
No, he played
not
36.
special teams, actual defensive snaps. Week 1, 36%. Week 2, 45%. So to the extent that proves anything, that's what the numbers are.
I would say too that they probably faced a lot of, in the first half anyway, a lot of heavy sets. So that
Mhm.
could lend to the fact that he possibly played in some of the base sets. Which, I mean, if Greg Cosell said that, I assume it's true.
The Jags are going to give Leonard Fournette CTE by like mid-season, the way they're running him.
Yeah, I mean they don't have.
How many carries did he have?
He
He
just
only
had
had 14.
14.
Well, I mean,
They just
But
got down.
yeah, they would like to give him first week. He had something like 28 or something ridiculous. It was some huge number of touches.
And they've got Ivory too. I mean, he's a
Yeah.
very solid number two. So
back to Corey Davis. I mean, I actually thought he'd be healthier because all reports were he was having good practices.
yeah,
And
after the injury, even
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah, and I think probably what happened is it tweaked or whatever.
Mhm.
Probably not to the point where he still couldn't play, but I think they're frustrated and they're probably like, screw it, we're going to shut him down. No use sending him in and out. They probably made that decision after the game, but the hamstrings, I mean, that happens to all players. They 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 come back later on in the season. How many times? I mean, they constantly re-pull the hamstring injuries
Mhm.
during the season. It may
Yeah.
not be right for the whole year.
Right. I think that's why theoretically, if they are cautious and they're going to try and shut him down for a bunch of weeks, hopefully that takes care of it. But it's no guarantee with those sorts of injuries. So
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if I mean we got a bye this year, right? Right, smack dab in the middle of the season. Week 8 is actually the bye. So we've already played 2 games. We got 5 games before the bye. I would hate to see him miss that much time, but if that's what it takes, it wouldn't shock me if they hold him out that long.
hmm.
I
And
think
then
not just Davis, but hey, the passing game's got problems.
I,
Eric,
I
I
was I
mean,
was waiting to make a joke about Decker. Been underwhelming.
honestly, if I think Jamal agreed with me at the time, I wasn't as excited about the Decker signing as everybody else, and I even suggested, we'll see if he makes the team. But then we saw his money. He got I think 3.6 million or something like that. Okay, and then of course we fall for the training camp hype,
Right.
yeah,
and he's looked more like the guy we wondered if he had anything left. So
hmm
far, maybe he learns the offense, maybe he gets better, but
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple of big catches early in this game. I think it was early, where it was a couple of back-to-back catches. But week one, they were trying to design plays to get it to him, and it was just a complete waste of a down. And granted, they did have some plays where, I think it was Corey Davis, if he had blocked on one play and Eric Decker could have gotten outside, that had potential to be a huge play. But so far
and
this season, I feel like to the extent that they've designed around him, and the way they talk about it still is that he is a guy who they want to rely on and who they think is a big part of the offense. So far, to the extent that they've done that intentionally and haven't just had it be part of the normal flow, it's been a waste.
I'm pretty sure he's playing the X receiver position that Davis is supposed to be playing. So, with
yeah, it's kind of funny all the off-season additions and acquisitions and good old reliable Delaney Walker and Rashard Matthews are still the top 2 guys it seems this year. So
I'll say
I
this about Mariota though. Even though his numbers are not that great,
Mhm.
he looks to me like he understands the offense better. He makes quicker decisions. He throws the ball away better. I
There
still
were
think I still think he has better command of the offense. Last year, like the Viking interception where he just kind of panicked and threw it, and he had some other ones like that. That seems to be gone a lot more. So even though he's not putting up gaudy stats, I do think he's managing the game better.
absolutely this last game I only got through into the fourth quarter a little bit on my rewatch, but it was clear there were just so many times where it was like, yep, I'll throw this away. I'll throw this away. And it wasn't like he wasn't holding it for 10 seconds and then throwing it away at the last second as he's trying to fade away from a defender. It
Right.
was just, there's nothing here. I'm done with this. Let's go. Next down. And
yep,
that's what you need from him.
If he did that last
I'm
year,
pretty
they
sure
probably would have won 10 or 11 games, honestly.
I'm pretty sure I saw a tweet from Tom Gower that it was actually a career high in terms of intentional throwaways for
Mhm.
Mariota. I think it was something like 4.
Yeah, I saw that it was 4.
It was
Yeah.
4? Okay. Felt like
Yeah.
more when I was watching it.
Of course, one of them was almost a little extreme. He almost got flagged.
Yeah. Almost intentional grounding. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he's moving around better in the pocket too. I posted that after week 1. There were several plays when you could just see him shifting and moving his feet much better within the pocket and kind of navigating when there's lots of action at his feet. Particularly week 1, there was a lot of action around his feet, and he was moving around well. This week he did have the bad interception. I think it was more of a bad decision. They talk about classifying interceptions. He just didn't see the guy because it was double coverage.
No, it could still have been a problematic throw, but I think the route, the receiver probably should have sat down in on that instead of continuing.
And
then
double coverage.
Yeah, well, if the receiver is in front of them, then it's still a completion. But it's hard to know exactly where he would have been. So if you want to call it a bad play, I'm still comfortable with that. But it looked a lot worse than it was because I'm pretty sure Jonnu Smith should have sat down on the route and not continued.
Either he should have sat down, or not only was it an interception, he threw behind him by about 5 yards.
Yeah, by a lot, yeah.
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 And, hey, honestly, let's say that did happen. I think that's more of the problem with the passing game right now. Decker, Corey Davis is in and out. Obviously, Taylor doesn't know the offense well enough. And it's probably going to take half the season, just like last year, honestly, until Davis gets back, Taylor's implemented more. And, hey, I hate to say it, but maybe Harry Douglas will help some too.
It's entirely possible at this point. If Davis is shut down, they only have so many wide receivers. You're going to start seeing.
Yeah, they'll need Douglas.
Yeah,
yep.
That'll be interesting. By the way, I just wanted to say, and I don't know how much it's been discussed. I feel like it's an under-discussed topic. One of Mariota's great values to this offense is how well he runs the run-pass option. He is so good at it. And that's not just his legs, it's his decision-making and his timing. Like, he can hand that ball off at the last millisecond.
Yeah.
He tricked me 2 or 3 times in the game. I didn't know if he was handing it off or running with it. I don't know if y'all noticed it, but the sweep to Taylor was actually a read play option with him. It was the same type of deal, but they used him on the end around. And he really sold it well on that one too.
Yeah, I honestly think that it's not just like his speed running the ball. I think he helps the running game so much because they actually do a lot of run pass option, and he is just really, really good at it.
Yeah, there's if you follow Brian, I think it's Baldinger on Twitter. Baldy NFL is his handle.
I love his.
Yeah, he's got a great shot of there's I don't know, are you talking about the Seahawks one, Scotty?
No, I'm talking about the breakdowns he did at the Titans.
Oh yeah. I want to get to the
Seahawks one came on my
one.
timeline. That was great.
But there's a great one of that exact play you're talking about with Taylor. There was actually an option. He could have passed it to Delaney Walker too. He actually had 3 options there.
Yes,
he could have handed it to Taylor. He could have ran it, or he could have passed it off to Delaney Walker. He had 3 options, and they talked about it's on his Twitter. It's like one of the most recent tweets, and he shows like when Miles Jack freezes because I mean Mariota's hand where it is, you cannot tell if he's about to pull it out of there or if he's about to pass it or if he's about to hand it off. And of course, he ends up handing it off, and Taylor gets a big gain out of it. But yeah, he does a great job. It's like the all-22. It's a view from the Jags perspective, actually. But it's pretty cool. It's a pretty nice shot. But yeah, that's a good point, Jamal. I'm glad you brought that up.
And
are you talking about all 5 offensive linemen are on the ground?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bunch of War Max out there.
Yeah, it's a good segue.
A bunch of War Max. It's great. But no, I just wanted to say also, I think that because this was a thread that you put on TitansReport.com, Scotty, and there are multiple perspectives on this. So I think it's been pretty clear that I think Mariota passing wise, I'd love to see him in 5 wide, shotgun, spread him out, quick hits. I'd love to see that passing wise. But to the extent that the offense has been designed around his ability to do a run pass option. I think they've done a really good job with aspects of this offense. It's just not the passing offense that I would like to see. But there are things that I think are completely underrated by fans generally. And one of them is there is no reason that they need to be doing this run pass option as much, except for this is something they identified and they designed around it. And it's absolutely a strength of his that they've designed around. And I think to that extent, they deserve a lot of credit.
I just think they've got too many injuries. They didn't have any wide receivers last year. And I just think, like, Matt Ryan and some of these other guys, it's going to take longer than the fans want to have an elite passing game. It may be next year before Davis and Taylor and Jonnu Smith are all implemented into like a really good passing game.
Well, with Davis officially already ruled out, I mean, Taylor had the one big play. I guess you could say he had two big plays. He had the run,
right,
but of course he had the great catch, like you mentioned earlier, Jamal, down the sideline. He's going to be getting a lot more snaps. I mean, just by nature of Harry Douglas being out and next man up. So I'm excited to see Taywan Taylor out there more. I think, in fact, if Davis was 100% healthy, I think you'd start to hear rumblings about should Taylor be taking some of these snaps that are going to Decker right now. Of course, we're only 2 games in, so both of these guys, both Decker and Taylor, are learning this offense, and Davis. So
how did Decker not score on the onside, by the way?
It's close.
Oh, yeah. I thought he was going to, for sure.
I was convinced he was going to score until he was already on the ground. I was like, how did he even get tackled? I swear he cut back on that guy. That makes no sense.
But if there's 1 week for the offense to come alive, I don't think it's going to be this week. We've got quite an opponent coming in, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
It's a lot like the Jaguar game.
Yes, honestly. That's what I was going to say. Who knows? Their offense, Russell Wilson is really good, and they have some weapons on their offense, but their offensive line holds them back. And I think that if you can get up on this team, they're in trouble.
They've been really bad this
Russell
year.
Wilson. They have not been the Seattle Seahawks. Even defensively, they have not been the team you think. Defensively, there is no way you would expect San Francisco to run all over them like they did. San Francisco, I don't even know why they passed the ball. They were killing them with the run.
Yeah, but they really did have a lot of no gains or losses. I mean, I saw a thread. I saw them arguing over that in the thread, and I watched the game. They had like 4 runs that really inflated, which, I mean, those count, whatever, but it's not like Henry was doing where he's busting off 4 to 6 yards a pop. They were stonewalling the run, and I mean, the 6 points, I think. It's not.
What was that last point? It cut out just a bit there.
Just that, they only scored 6 points. They weren't running at will. It was really about 4 good runs that really inflated their totals. So,
that's interesting.
I still don't think Henry or Murray. I know Murray won't. Are gonna are gonna run all over the city. Now, do the same thing you did to the Jaguars. I do think it matters that it's like 55, 60 degrees in Seattle right now. If it's upwards of 80 degrees in Nashville, and the Titans can control the ball, they'll fold up just like the Jaguars did, especially if Henry's running in the second half like he was against the Jaguars.
We didn't really talk about it, but Henry wasn't just getting good blocking.
Honestly, I want to say something else about Henry. Go back to last year when he was drafted. Remember preseason? We're like, oh my God, everyone missed on this guy. Who's better, him or Ezekiel Elliott?
Yeah.
And then what happened is Murray was so good the first 4 or 5 games, and everyone just kind of forgot about Henry. And now, I mean, what he did Sunday against the Jaguars, that cannot be understood. I mean, that was amazing. That was amazing what he was doing.
Yeah, and I think I may be making this up, but I feel like there was a quote from Malarkey back, maybe even a little bit after they drafted him, about sort of how they were going to use Derrick Henry. And like Jamal was saying, that Malarkey's not really a 2-back guy. But I believe, and like I said, I could be making this up, but I believe there was a quote where Malarkey talked about that they want Henry to be that guy when they've got the lead, when they've got that lead in the fourth quarter, and you just need to lay down the hammer and run over teams and
He can
seal a
do it.
victory.
He
And
can
that's
do it.
exactly what they did. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he had some fantastic runs this game. And like you said, it wasn't he had the big 17-yard, the big highlight touchdown run. But then after that, it was just those demoralizing 5 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards, just over and over and over until we scored. Yeah.
He was grabbing people by the face. It was basically like, the bully in a bad cartoon where, they're in a fight and he's just holding somebody by the face and the other guy's like just swinging at air. That's what he was doing. It was just man against boys out there.
And he was outrunning them to the edge.
Folded up. I don't think they wanted any of it. He was just so physically imposing.
Yeah. And I'm still amazed at how he can cut as a big man. There were a couple carries when he just makes cuts that a guy that size has no business making. It's crazy.
The reason he's rated so high by a lot of the analytical sites, and someone mentioned this on the board, even going back to last year, I think he's got one run longer than 20 yards. And his longest run this year, I think, is the touchdown run, the 17-yard run. You're averaging over 6 yards a carry, and you don't have a long run. I mean, you're getting literally on almost every carry.
Yeah. It's like the opposite of CJ, right?
Yeah, which, hey, honestly, that's why he rated so low on the analytical sites, because Adrian Peterson was the same way. You get so many no gains and losses, and those really count against you in those when they judge the running backs that way. And
yeah,
honestly, they should. I mean, a 4 or 5 yard carry, they add up. They put the offense in such a good position. The Jaguars knew he was running the ball, and that's typically when they stop the line and stop the guy. You punt and you do it again. No, he was burning the clock up.
Jamal, I'm curious about one thing. You think you sold Rashard Matthews a little bit short, maybe after the first two games, or you still think he is what you thought he was?
I think it's pretty much what I thought he was. He's not a go-to receiver.
I think he's so underrated.
He has key plays, but he's not a go-to guy. He's not sustaining your offense. He's not even putting up crazy stats right now.
He was last year. He did last year.
Last year he was. We had nothing else. But now we've got some other options, and it's not there.
Well, I mean, we were supposed to have some other options. We don't.
I mean, nobody's really putting up crazy stats. Though,
like I said, they're wasting downs on Decker. So
I just think, I mean, aside from that first play against Oakland when he dropped, it was a little bit of a low pass, but he should have caught it. Aside from that, I mean, he's catching like everything thrown his way on big, like third down conversions.
He would have had another one.
He has 8 catches this year.
He had another one if Mariota had.
Who's got the most? Delaney Walker has what? Like, not much more than that.
They didn't even try to throw the ball in this game, though. That wasn't they were running the ball. They're not going to put up stats this week, next week, and then they play the Texans. They're not their offensive numbers
not for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be week 5. They're at the Dolphins, but we've only seen them play one game. They look decent. Then it lets up finally on the defensive side. You get the Colts and the Browns.
Here's what Rashard Matthews is to me. When Corey Davis comes back and he's the legitimate go-to number one guy, Matthews is the perfect receiver on the other side.
Oh, yeah. And there's you can just see just Marcus is so much more comfortable. Those guys, Delaney and Matthews, know the offense.
Oh, yeah.
And he's so much more comfortable going to them than the others right now.
The first drive the Titans had against the Jaguars, there was I think a 3rd and 6, and Mariota just sailed the ball just into no man's land. I don't know if y'all remember this. And when Decker did a comeback, and Mariota threw it over his head.
Oh yeah.
when they were, first of all, Decker was pointing around like, what was I supposed to do? And when he was coming to the sideline, you saw Malarkey and one of the other coaches going to Decker like, you went the wrong way or whatever they were saying. But it was clear there was a miscommunication there.
Right. And timing. I mean, some of those completions to Walker this game were just like pinpoint to the perfect place.
Oh, yeah.
And that only works if you also know exactly where that guy's going to be. And so, timing-wise, it's huge. Delaney, and I'll say this about Rashard Matthews. He can take a hit.
Oh, man.
He got leveled, and he took it.
Yeah, I mean, their receiving numbers as a whole, though, are down.
They're low. He has the most catches outside of Delaney Walker.
Yeah. Yeah, Delaney's got 11 for 137, and then Rashard's 8 for 114. Davis is actually third still, 7 for 73. So that shows you how little the receivers are actually doing right now. Rashard, his yards per reception, 14.3. So, I mean, he's doing a lot with what, the chances he's getting. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the receiving game evolves, especially as they, like you said, Scotty, it's not going to happen these next couple games. I mean, this is going to be, remember how we were talking last year after the Kansas City game, after the Denver game. I mean, this is one of those type defenses where you just got to slug it out. You got to make just enough plays to put yourself in position to win. And really on offense, especially passing the ball, I mean, I think it's going to be a lot about just not making that big mistake, not making that mistake like week 1 against Minnesota. I think it's a game where I posted this on the board this week. I think it's a game where Adoree Jackson can change this game big time by getting a punt return, maybe even for a touchdown this week. I mean, he's so close. He's going to get one. It's just a matter of when. And this week, that's the type of play that, I mean, that could get you the victory, that play right there, because of how their offense is. And I mean, you've seen the games they played this year. They're in it's lots of field goals. Even the Packers, do you remember, Jamal? I think they held them to like 17 or something. I mean, it was a low scoring game, even though Green Bay won.
I was just looking at that. Aaron Rodgers was 28 of 42, 311 yards and 1 touchdown. Ty Montgomery had 19 carries for only 54 yards.
One of their touchdowns came after Wilson fumbled the ball on the 5-yard line. They only had to go 5 yards. And the other touchdown was when they caught the Seahawks subbing, and he kind of tricked them and threw a touchdown pass to.
That's right.
Else. So it was 0-0 at halftime. I watched that game.
3. It looks like Seahawks got a field goal
before half.
Yeah. So it was
so bad week 1. That's shocking to look at the box score. Russell Wilson had 158 yards passing. He was also the leading rusher with 4 yards.
Hey, listen, the Seahawks offensive line is about like the Titans offensive line of 2015, and that's not a joke. That's not a joke.
And it looks like they have found their running back, though. So, I mean, that's something that's going to be interesting to watch this week. Carson, I think.
I'm all about Chris Carson in fantasy football. Let's go.
I picked
Although I guess
Not this week. Not this week.
But he can do whatever the heck he wants as long as we end up winning.
It's just so funny how
yards as long as we win.
How as the season progresses, like when you see what's happening around the league and you see when a team comes in. I mean, this was a game just 2 weeks ago when we were podcasting. We said this is the hardest game on the schedule. No questions asked. Easily the hardest game. Now it's like Titans are actually favored. So, I mean, I like the Titans in this game. I think if we can play a mistake-free game, which is a monumental task against this defense, and when I say mistake-free, I mean turnover-free. Of course, there are going to be mistakes, but not have those big back-breaking turnovers, protect the ball. If Marcus does what he was doing against the Jags, just throw it away if it's not there. I think the defense will be able to step up again and get some stops and maybe even get some turnovers. The biggest concern here is, you touched on it, Jamal, is Wilson. I mean, this is a drastically different quarterback than Blake Bortles. Russell Wilson is a guy who can make plays despite the awful offensive line. I mean, if he gets out of the pocket, Malarkey's already talked about how they're going to try and keep him in the pocket. if he gets out of the pocket, though, I mean, he can break a run on you. He can have a busted play where a receiver sneaks out there and he spins out of the pocket and throws it deep. He's the biggest concern on offense. It's really not even close. Not even really a close second on their offensive side. And defensively, I mean, I think we kind of know what we got to do there. We got to run the ball. We got to protect the ball, get a few third downs here and there. But this isn't a team you're really going to gash for a lot of points.
Yeah, it's unlikely. Hoyer had 99 yards passing last week. Granted, it's Hoyer, and granted, it's San Francisco, but that's just
Aaron Rodgers didn't throw the ball on him very well either.
Yeah, what do you say? He threw it 42
times. If I remember
right,
the Packers started out yards.
I think we're losing.
But
Jamal
I think
again.
that game started. The Packers could not move the ball.
Oh, okay. Packers started out and couldn't move the ball. Gotcha.
I'm just so intelligent, you guys.
Green Bay had no points in the first half. I mean, they couldn't do anything.
Yeah. And we guys, speaking of the audio issues, we've been trying to.
That's what I was trying to say.
There he is. He came back for a second. Yeah. So the audio issues in recent weeks, we're trying to get to the bottom of this. I know people have had some issues with. At times we've heard Scotty's too low and Jamal's too loud, and then we've heard background noise with Scotty. We're trying to get it figured out. We may have to eventually move away from Hangouts. I don't know. We like it because it's really easy to go live, but we're having some connection issues. So we'll try to get those ironed out. But we appreciate you guys being patient with us. And yeah. So well, you guys want to go ahead and give your predictions? I think we've been going over an hour now, or about an hour now. So I think it's going to be, what most people expect, a low scoring game. And I really do think the punt game, I think Adoree Jackson's going to make a play that gives the Titans the edge in this game. And I think we win. I think something like 17-14, maybe a field goal at the end.
I think the Titans will win. I think they'll stop Carson, and I would not be surprised if LeBeau doesn't try to do a lot of blitzes to keep Russell Wilson in the pocket. Not necessarily pressuring, but to keep him from being able to get outside. And if you keep him in there, the Seahawks offense is terrible. I mean, I know they're the Seahawks and everything, but their offense is terrible.
Yeah, they don't even really have, their receivers, Golden Tate's gone. They traded away Curse.
Jimmy Graham may not play, but honestly, he's been a liability so far. I actually thought that was a terrible trade anyway, but he's been a liability so far this year. They can't really figure out how to use him, and he's actually given up some of the sacks, and he's dropped some passes.
All right, let's try to see, Jamal. Let's see if we can get your prediction in here before we hop off.
I predict internet issues.
That was clear. We're good there.
Yeah. No, now my actual prediction will break up. I don't know. I want to predict a Titans win, but I think I'm still hung up on Seattle finding a way to turn into who they are expected to be. So I'm feeling pessimistic this week. I'd actually predict a Seattle win, but there's no reason the Titans can't win. I think it'll come down to, you, like you said, you have to play mistake-free against the defense, and that'll give us a really good chance. But, we've played pretty mistake-free so far, and I don't know. I don't have a great feeling about this game for whatever reason.
Their worst offensive lineman is also the guy that will be in front of Casey, their right guard.
Casey, I didn't pay attention. How did he do week 2? Because week 1 he was a complete non-factor and he got trucked, and I'm still angry about that.
Let's see here. He had 2 tackles in this game. I don't know. Looks like nothing. He had 2 quarterback hits too, so he was getting pressure, if not getting actual sacks.
He was praised a lot more in this game. I don't remember him making any significant plays, but.
Oh, by the way, we didn't mention this earlier, but how about the fact that Taywan Taylor's big catch came with him running right by AJ Bouye, the big free agent acquisition.
Well, some of Decker's catches were on him too. He actually gave up some passes.
It definitely seemed like they focused on him a lot more than Ramsey in the passing game. They barely threw at Ramsey at all.
Hey, Ramsey's the real deal. I know people like to, Henry ran over him and all that stuff, but he in another year or two, he's probably going to be the best cornerback in the league if he's not already.
Oh man, I don't think we're going to be able to get any more from Jamal this week, guys. So I guess we'll take that as his final thoughts for this week. Scotty, you got anything else to add before we hop off here?
No, just that if they can somehow beat the Seahawks and get by the Texans, which that's a week away, but they should certainly win that. Coming out of the first quarter, if they could be 3-1,
oh man, that'd be huge.
Especially just trying to win these games and get some of these people back, get the receiving core clicking better. If they can just, that's to me that's the goal. Get out of the first part of the season with a decent record, start getting Davis back, and figure out the running back position. If they can do that stuff, they'll be set up very well to try to win the division.
Yeah, I mean 2-2. We talked about the schedule, how it's definitely more difficult on the front end. 2-2 would still be passable. I mean, that's not the end of the world, and they could still easily win the division from 2-2. But if you get to 3-1 with this opening schedule, that's a really good place to be in. Then you go on the road to Miami, a very winnable game. I mean, it's going to be a tough game, most likely, what we've seen from the Dolphins so far. But then you get the Colts at home, Monday Night Football. Then you go to Cleveland. Those are two games that if you're going to be the division leader, if you're going to win this division, you absolutely have to win those types of games. And then you go into the bye. So the Titans here, I mean, I love we've been doing this for the past couple of years. I love kind of taking a step back at the end of each episode and sort of looking at the schedule and just kind of trying to get an overall outlook of where things stand. But yeah, I mean, this Seahawks game, we circled it as being the most difficult game of the year. And it may still end up being the most difficult game of the year because you look at what they've got left. I mean, just right now, the way teams are playing, of course, a lot can change. But right now, the only teams even close to this level would be like the Ravens and the Steelers. And they're both certainly beatable teams as well.
I heard Bill Simmons. Did you ever hear Bill Simmons and Cousin Sal break down all the lines and stuff?
No.
It's pretty interesting. He picked the Texans to win the division. And after the Jaguar game, he started looking at the Titans' schedule just like you did. And he immediately said they're betting on the Titans to win the division and completely changed his mind.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the schedule is so front loaded. We talked about it in the opening episode, but their last 4 games are at Arizona, at the 49ers, then the Rams and the Jags at home. I mean, and I know it's the NFL. Anybody can beat anybody, but you couldn't ask for a better
that looks good right now.
Into your season. Yeah, than that.
And by the way, I meant to say this earlier. After the Raiders played the Jets, I thought the Raiders looked really good again. The Raider loss does not look very. That's a good team.
That's not a bad loss at all. Yeah,
that's a good team. That's one of the best teams in the league, probably. By the way, thank God we're not in the AFC West. Good luck winning that thing.
Oh man, yeah, that's. Whew. I think it would be the first time ever.
Okay, can you hear me? I have to talk about the AFC West.
We do hear you. Yeah,
it's insane. It really is insane. Oakland seems pretty good on both sides of the ball. Amazing defense. Their offense looks decent. Kansas City, basically the same thing.
Dang, I wanted to hear what he had to say so bad.
I think we might have completely lost in that time. But yeah, I mean, I think where he was going with that, you just look at all 3 of those teams. I mean, they could be sitting at 3-0. I think they're all favored this week. You could have 3 teams in that division at 3-0 after 3 weeks of the season. That is insane. So you got to think the wild cards coming from there, not both wild cards coming from that division.
I mean, Simeon and Alex Smith look like the 2 best quarterbacks in the league so far.
Yeah. Just like everybody predicted, right? All right, guys. This has been yet another episode of the Two-Tone Crew. Thank you all so much for your support and listening in. Jamal, despite the internet issues, I don't know if you can still hear us or not. Despite the internet issues, thank you for joining us. Scotty, thank you as well. Of course, you can find us online at TitansReport.com. This podcast, The Two-Tone Crew, is available on iTunes. It's available on Stitcher and a number of other podcasting services, Android market as well. So you can find us lots of different podcasting sources. And you can find us on Twitter at Titans Report. You can find me on Twitter at Retro Raconteur. You can find Jamal on Twitter at Jamalisms. And if you would like to send a mailbag or a voicemail, we have those things as well. You can just find all that information at TitansReport.com. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you all again very soon.